Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. This episode is going to be with my buddy Clifton Denney from On Your Own Outdoors. If you don't know what that is or who that is, he is a very, very good bow hunter. Honestly, one of the best probably that I know, who has a YouTube channel, and you get to see all the hunts that he does. I know I think last time we talked about this, he said he's got like 14 Pope and Youngs, which is insane. Most of which I believe are off public lands. So that's that's unheard of these days. So it's gonna be a really good episode, man. Clifton's a great dude. He is in the military, so I want to go ahead and say thank you, Clifton, for your service, and anybody else that's listening who served our country. We would not be here without you guys. So before we get started with that, obviously we got to get the partners out of the way. If you haven't signed up for Bow Hunting League yet, you are severely missing out. When this episode drops, it's going to be two weeks from the recording. So I want to say, dude, you might have like a couple days left as you're listening to this. So go ahead, get with your friends, get with your buddies that bow hunt. If you don't have any, that's okay. Go to bowhuntingleague.com and sign up, get them signed up, make your team. There's a lot of awesome prizes. And honestly, it's not even just about the prize. It's just really, really cool. They are giving away it looks like a Jeep, like an older Jeep that they had a name for, but I completely forgot it. So sorry, Ben. But yeah, man, the Bow Hunting League is an awesome group of guys. It's an awesome contest that happens every single year. And I'm very, very thankful to be partnered up with them and be able to work with those guys. So big stuff coming from them. I can't really talk about it yet, but as soon as it happens, I will let you guys know. Just stay tuned for that. So next up is going to be the Boutique. Still have not sent my arrows. Hopefully by the time this episode drops, I would have already sent them to Michael. Been slacking. Fun's been kind of tight. These deer eating me out of house and home. And, so are the bills. But yeah, the Boutique, man, great company. Michael Stonebreaker is an awesome dude. And he does custom arrow wraps. I actually just saw I believe some exclusive wraps for another partner of ours, Chest Thumper Outdoors, who I'll get to in a minute. He made some wraps for him that he is going to be selling on his website. And dude, they're super cool. It's got, I believe, deer, elk, and bear, and they glow in the dark. That's something that, if you shoot a deer at night, or not at night, obviously it's illegal, but in the evening, and maybe you don't know where your arrow is, or you don't have lighted nocks, that is going to be very helpful to find that arrow if you get down at dark. So honestly, just everything that Michael does at the Boutique is amazing. He can literally make any arrow wrap that you want, and I'm very excited to see what he does for the arrows that I'm sending him. But it's just a great product, and the wraps don't weigh a lot. It's really a good product, and like I said before, Michael's a great dude. So if you go to the boutiquellc.com and you see some wraps you like, or you do a custom order, at shipping, put in the code SEBHP, and your shipping will be free. That is straight from Michael. That's for all the listeners. It is fantastic that he's doing all this stuff, and the stuff he can do is amazing. Next up is going to be Osseo gear. Man, I'm so ready. Deer season will be 2 weeks away at the time of this episode drop, and I still need to wash my Osseo again. I'm kind of weird with scent. I'm sure that me and Clifton will talk about that in this episode, but man, I'm telling you, like, that Osseo gear is going to be a game changer for me this year. I love it. Honestly, I do. It is a great great product. Joe is a great dude. The company is great. So if you are really running behind, or you just kind of want to upgrade your camo before season, or even during season, go to osseogear.com and check out everything that they have. And whenever you see something you like, you put it in your cart, you go to checkout, use our code SEBH for 15% off your entire order. That's the entire website. Next up is going to be Summit Tree Stands. You can see the back of, or the bottom platform of my climber. I have been going back through it, making sure that everything I did earlier this year is completely ready to go. Just tightening everything down, just doing preseason checks. And that climber is going to be awesome. It is already extremely comfortable. Played with it a little bit more or a little bit earlier this year when Jake and them first sent it. Thank you guys again for that, by the way. And I'm just excited, man. You know, this is my first new climber I've ever had, and I've always used Summit, and you know, for them to be able to hook me up with you know, the new climber that came out this year, I can't thank them enough, and I know it's going to be very crucial to me killing hopefully more than one target buck this year. So you know, if look, if you run a summit, if you don't run a summit, go to summitstands.com. Especially if you do run a summit, check out all the accessories. If you want to upgrade, you still have time, and you can pick out any new tree stand that they have. I highly recommend the Dual Threat Pro SD because it covers all types of hunters. But when you do that, whatever you decide to get, if you get anything on that website, at checkout, use our code SEBH15 for 15%, and that goes for the entire website. It's everything from tree stand, accessories, safety harnesses, you know, merchandise, all that stuff. Next up is going to be Scout Tech, and I actually just talked with Ryan today. My cameras have been blowing up. Trike and all the does and the fawns and stuff over on that property have been honestly eating away at my data. it's been ridiculous, man. But it's good. You know, it's looking good. Opening day hopefully is when I can be able to put trike down, and you guys will definitely know about that as soon as it happens. I will post it everywhere. But Scout Tech, the cameras have been working flawlessly. Ryan actually had to add data to me because of all the deer that have been showing up, and you know, that's not like a brag or anything. It's just my data plan I had before that was not enough. So thank you, Ryan, for that. We did talk about the unlimited plans coming. He said they're coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. I think when this episode drops, because I'm starting to do them a couple weeks out, I believe that they're, what is it, 2 for the price of 1 deal for the shadow cameras. Right now, it should be going on. At the time of recording this, it's definitely still going on, but when this episode comes out, it should still be going. So if you need some cameras, if you're running behind, go to scouttech.com, check out their deals, and take advantage of it, because once it's over, it's over. Next up is gonna be Ace Hardware. They got me hooked up, man. Victory sent me some 300 spine arrows because I decided to go back to 300 spine. Tried tinkering around with the 350s. It worked, but it didn't work as well. I wasn't as comfortable as I was with 300. So shout out to Victory for that. Thank you guys. But I took my arrows to Ace to get cut and, you know, get the inserts put in. I could do it myself, but if I'm there, why not? And Mark got them cut in 2 minutes. Literally, I checked. This dude was insane. They took care of me that quick, and they're extremely busy. So thank you guys for that. If you want to find a really good bow shop, those are the guys to go to. Next up is going to be Bergie Bowsmith. So me and Bergie have been talking a lot lately. A lot more things are coming from him, but if you don't know who Bergie is an amazing bow tech. This dude is a wizard when it comes down to working on bows. He can literally tune any bow, 15-yard bare shaft paper tuning, and you get a bullet hole every time. Like literally a bullet hole every time that he tunes your bow for you. And so if you have any issues, obviously you reach out to him. He'll gladly take care of it. He'll walk you through it. Just a really good dude. So what we did, or really what Bergie did, is let me rephrase that. He's becoming a dealer for a lot of different companies that we all use. So go to bergiebowsmith.com, check out everything that he has got on his website. If you decide to get any of that, or you decide to get him to tune your bow, use this code. It is SEBH10. That'll save you 10% your entire order. And like I said, there's more coming from Bergie and I. It takes time to do these things. So next up, VPA, last week's episode, or I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago. Dude, that Omega is insane. That Omega with bleeders is absolutely insane. I cannot wait to use them this year. Ryan and Jeff are some awesome dudes. It was a great episode. I had a great time. You learn a lot when you get guys on that actually do work on broadheads, because that's the first thing that touches the animals we're hunting. So I was very thankful for them to come on, and there's quite a few things coming down the pipeline with Southeastern Bowhunter and VPA. So very excited about all of that. Things are looking up, man. I mean, really, it's, I can't thank God enough for all of this, for all these partners that I work with, and all the guests that come on, all the people that listen. Excuse me. I want to thank all of you guys, man. I'm not done with the partners yet. Got two more, or really three more. But I just want to say thank you. So moving on. Dialed archery. You can't see it in the video unless you can see right there. Got my dialed Arxos. That sight, dude, amazing. So good. Best sight I've ever used. It's cool as crap. It just looks good and it worked great and it's tough. Like the sighting in process is super easy. I dropped it over at TAC. Jeez, sorry guys. I dropped it at TAC. Fell up a mountain, which is crazy, and it was fine. Absolutely no problems. So go check out Dialed Archery. Scott is becoming a good friend of mine from what I can tell. But honestly, that whole company, everybody that works there, they're really, really good dudes. I really think that if you guys need a new site, Dialed is the way to go. Next up is going to be Camo Dust. Chris is coming on in a few weeks, and in a few weeks, I'll be using Camo Dust to hide from Trek. That's the only scent control product that I trust, and I know Clifton uses it, and the dude's killed over 14. I would assume by now over 14 Popagnons off public land. So if he's using it, as long as you do it right, I've used it. As long as you do it right, I don't see why you wouldn't use it. And so when Chris comes on, we're going to talk all about that. But very thankful for all of them. And last but not least is going to be Chest Thumper Outdoors. My boy Trent, I know I've been kind of slacking on this a little bit. I'm sorry. I honestly, with all the stuff that's been going on, it's really hard to kind of remember everything. So, but yeah, Trent Crumpler has the YouTube channel Chest Thumper Outdoors. He does a lot of reviews on a bunch of different products that we all use. He has been growing rapidly. I think he just hit like over 1 million views or something, which is insane. And he's a great dude. I need to get him back on here and talk just BS with him. But yeah, man. So that's going to be all the partners. Go check out his YouTube channel. Check out all the partners that I work with. They help make this happen. And I don't push anything that I don't believe in. So take it for what it is. Before we get started with this episode, I just want to say, if you don't know Jesus Christ, I know that some of y'all have reached out about this and have thanked me for it. I've yet to have somebody say they didn't like the fact I brought this up, which is good. I mean, that's, even if somebody did say that, I'm going to keep doing it. But if you don't know Jesus Christ, I highly recommend you do get to know him. Life-changing, honestly, life-changing. Some of the stuff I could tell you guys on here if I had the time. You'd be like, wow, I need to look into this. But there's been a lot of stuff going on lately, a lot of hardships, but he's gotten us through it. So can't thank him enough. And without him, we would not be here. So that's going to be the pretty much the wrap up of the intro. It's a little bit longer this week. Kind of working on that. I'm rushing a little bit this evening. But yeah, man, this episode with Clifton is going to be great. He actually just texted me saying he's ready to go. So let's get into it with Clifton Denney from On Your Own Outdoors. As you know from the title, as you know from the intro, we got my boy Clifton Denney from On Your Own Outdoors. This man is honestly probably one of the best hunters I know. And I'm not saying that just to butter him up. I'm saying it because this dude's got at least, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but at least 14 Popagnons in the books that he's killed. And I believe most of them are off public, which to me is like insane. So before we dive into all that nitty gritty stuff, man, what's been going on? You and I were just talking a few minutes ago. You said you haven't really got much season prep done. So what have you been up to?
Dude, I have not. I actually haven't even sighted my bow in yet. And I know you said you are a month out from season. Arkansas has got an early velvet hunt this year. That's like 3 weeks away.
Oh,
so I'm a little behind the curve. No, man. My son is playing baseball, so I'm coaching his team now, and so we've got that going on. And it's review season. Trying to get reviews out to guys, try to get to the shows to help dudes pick out some products and stuff, which is super fun for me. Because I'll go with one company, but dudes from other, they're thinking about buying other company stuff. Like they'll come over, and the companies that I work with, like they're super cool about it. And so it's been fun. It's cool to like go to one of these shows and be standing in a booth with somebody, but like selling stuff out of another booth too. Mm-hmm. It says a lot about the community too, because like there's no animosity, because I think everybody kind of gets, when it comes to the gear stuff, who I am. You know what I mean? It's been cool, but other than that, like Eric, my buddy that hunts with me, we've got that little private piece here in Arkansas. And Arkansas is doing a 3-day velvet hunt, 7, 8, 9 September. So he went out like last week before last, set out some cameras. So we've got some pretty decent deer on that. I told you about the one big deer that we're not can't tell nobody about it yet, but I'll say this to everybody: if I kill that deer, it'd make noise not just in Arkansas but everywhere.
Yeah, people will know. They'll definitely know.
Yeah. You could take 2 of these big ones behind me and just slap them together.
Hey, you're giving out too much information now, man.
Nah, that's all. But other than that, man, that's been about it. I've just been busy. Summertime. I don't like to go. Everybody likes to go outside and do all that summertime scouting. I think that's miserable, man. There's snakes and ticks and everything else, and so I don't really. This is kind of my downtime, I guess you'd say, spend a little time with the family.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I use summer for. Like, me and my wife were talking probably about 2 weeks ago because I went and did my first scouting trip since February over on public, and I had 4 cameras running all year. Checked them, had some decent. I mean, there's probably one buck on there I've seen that I'm like, oh, he could be something. I've seen one other buck since then. He was pretty young, little 8-point, nothing crazy, right? But they're there, and that's kind of what I've been looking for because I know in October, November, this one spot that I've got my camera at, there's deer there all the time. So that whole scouting thing, man, I used to go multiple times throughout the year, and when it was blazing hot out and 100 degrees and I'm wearing jeans and boots and spray down with tick stuff and long sleeve shirts because I'm not trying to get bit. And this year I was like, you know what? It's not going to help,
No, I think, one thing that I do this time of year, and I say it on podcasts and in my videos is, I do a lot of map scouting. Obviously that's how I pick my spots is e-scouting off of a map. And this is the time of year where dudes are blowing me up in Messenger and email and like, hey man, could you tell me where you would go on this map and that kind of thing. And if any of these guys have ever watched any of my videos, that's one thing I always like to plug, and like I'll pop it up so I'm not lying. Like I dropped this pin in July, I dropped this pin in August, because July and August I like to sit in here in the man room, lay over there on the couch and start looking at the different states I'm going to go to and start picking places where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll kill a buck there, and so it's kind of my thing this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, you have all right. So I'm just going to get into it. You have been since the first time you came on the podcast, and we talked about everything you look for e-scouting. I probably dropped you or dropped your name and what you do at least 50 times since then, honestly. Because I'll be talking with guys and we'll be discussing like, well, how do you find big deer and how do you do this? And my go-to is like, well, my buddy Clifton told me you look for the fat line on Onyx, and that's just where he finds them. So that's what I've been doing. And I'll tell you, man, I've got 2 cameras on my public land spot that I've done that. And I did it without even knowing. I wasn't even looking back in February. I was like, well, I just want to go here and try it out. Just so happens it's on a fat line. And sure enough, that's where I got most of the buck pictures. So
dude, and I think it's awesome because like I get tagged and stuff on Facebook stuff all the time. And the most recent one was probably like 3 or 4 days ago, but a guy had screenshotted, he was using a hunt stand, but he had screenshotted his hunt stand thing and was like, dude, can anybody explain to me these topo lines? And he was like, I'm finding all this sign. And it was like, these are the topo lines. And like, say this is the fat one. And it was like, bloop, 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 all the way down it. And some random person that I don't even know, like, tagged my name in it, was like, Clifton Denney explain them fat lines too, kind of thing. I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well, and that was what was crazy is when I scouted a couple of weeks ago, man, I went and pulled one of the cards out of my camera that's in this little bottom, so on a fat line. And before I lost the camera. Like it took me 20 minutes to find it because it was just, when I put it in, everything was dead. I go back in there and it's all grown up, right? And what had happened was a deer had come through and bumped the camera and must have loosened it. So it was on the ground facing the other way, but I was still getting photos. Like I saw one decent buck, a coyote, some turkeys, some possums, a bunch of raccoon butt. Like there was a lot of stuff that was showing up. And what was crazy is before I even found that camera, I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, there's a rub there. There's a big rub over there, big rub over here. And it was just one of those things that I busted does out of there back in February, and then I'm seeing rubs in there already. Granted, it's not from this year, but still, they were there. So everything you've said and everything you taught us on the last episode, I'm seeing it. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for public, man. Like I really am. And there's some things I want to talk to you about with that, but just to, sort of get into it like that, the fat line thing is amazing. And my buddies have used it and it works.
And a little 3-minute plug here, guys. If this is the first episode you've ever heard and you don't know what he's talking about whenever you're talking about fat lines or you're new to topo, if you're experienced hunter, skip forward 3 minutes. If you're not, hear me out. Whenever you pull up the topo on your map, right, you'll see multiple lines. Basic knowledge of a topo map: the closer the lines are together, the more steep that is. The further the lines are apart, the more gradual that fall off is. Whenever you're looking at those things, you'll see a fat line. And if you're familiar with like big timber and you go up in the mountains or the hills, those fat topo lines, which you end up seeing a lot of times, ends up being like old skidder trails, old logging roads, stuff like that, end up falling on those. Now, that's not primarily where I end up killing my deers, on those roads, but those are the same kind of things you'll see. And basically what that fat line is a lot of times you can't even see it with your eyes, but on a map you can see it, and that is going to be the flattest spot on the side of that hill. And that's where those mature deer, they like to cruise it when it's a week out from prime time and the 2 weeks after prime time. If you're in there and you're seeing a bunch of sign on a big deer, and you're not very experienced, you're going up top, you're blowing that deer out, you're down in the bottom, so he's busting you down there. Get on that fat line, hang it, and let it eat.
I'm glad you explained that, because I was about to ask you to explain it. You're making my job easy. Oh, man.
And another thing, like real quick about topos that I have realized, dude, it's been a blessing to be able to go to these shows this year. I've been to, I went to the Mobile Hunters Expo twice, in the South and the North. And so I got a whole lot, because those are our people, right? Those are mobile hunters. That's the outdoors guys. So I do a lot of shows, but you don't get to go to a bunch of shows like that where everybody is just there for that type of thing. So I got a lot of feedback on my videos, on my podcasts and stuff like that. And what I realized is, like, a lot of guys don't understand my concept and how I actually map scout. So just a real quick piece. So a lot of times I think where people mess up is they're on their phone, they go walk through the woods or whatever, and they pull up a topo map and they're like looking at one ridge, right? So they're zoomed in on this one ridge and they find the fat line. They're like, I'm gonna go sit right here, and it doesn't work. Well, it's because there's more to it, right? So when you find a ridge that's a feed ridge or whatever it is, zoom all the way out, because there's always a paralleling ridge somewhere, right? Or there's one that, if you've got a ridge running north and south, it falls off here, and you've got one running north and south here, and it falls off. There's going to be that gradual finger that comes off of both of them. And so what I like to do is find, I'll zoom all the way out where I can see all the ridges, and then basically try to put a point together in between all those gradual slopes where I call them Joe trails, because I'm in the military, right? So Joe is lazy. That's the way he's going to go. Deer are the same way. They don't want to go up the steep side unless they get spooked. So I always try to find, like, I'll zoom out and I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, okay, this one got kind of a gradual slope. This one's got kind of a gradual slope. There's a big drainage ditch that runs up right here, and that stops just below a saddle, and there's a fat line. Boom. X marks the spot. I'm killing that son of a gun,
So you just taught me something else, because I was just looking at fat lines. I was just like, all right, where is it? And then I'd put an X, go check it out.
And that's the thing, though, is like the fat lines is part of the puzzle, right? Mm-hmm. And once you get a good understanding of that, and you're seeing the deer on those, but maybe that deer's 100 yards down this way or 100 yards down that way. Then I got some questions from guys that are hunting out in Oklahoma, 2 redheaded guys. I wish I could remember their name, and I hope they see this, because they were freaking awesome. We talked about maps for like 2 hours. But anyways, those dudes, I had to explain the fat line, but I never explained how I picked my spot on the fat line. And it was like, once I said that, then the one guy's head like blew up, and he was like, holy crap. And he like pulls up his map, because they're from Mississippi, but they hunt in Oklahoma a lot. And he's like, holy crap, that's exactly what this buck was doing, and that's the stuff that, like, I absolutely love it. Obviously, I love killing big deer. I love chasing them. I love the thrill of going out of state or going to a different piece of public. As you know, people have heard me on other stuff. I don't like to hunt stuff. And so I'll jump all over the place because I love the thrill of not knowing what's there and not knowing what's going to happen and having to put all of that stuff together in a moment's notice. And I think if dudes started hunting more like that, stop using past knowledge every year, go in fresh, you would be way more successful. Kind of like the big deer you and I were talking before this, that, in Arkansas, I know of two absolute giants, and I could be down there scouting where that deer is going to be, but in 2.5 weeks, he's probably going to be somewhere else because they're going to start cutting fields. Stuff's going to start moving. So, I have to, I like to go in fresh. So, we got that 3-day velvet hunt. And in all honesty, the first time I will probably ever encounter that deer's area will be when I'm carrying my stand in, but scouting on the maps kind of plays all into that. There's a slough over there. You can tell by the map. You can look at historical data. This one spot in that slough always holds water. It's been extremely dry in Arkansas. God willing, that's the only water. If they cut the rice off the private stuff. So.
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you said earlier about like going in fresh and stuff, I've kind of noticed it this year because I'm on this one deer. He was going to be a big 6, but he broke his main beam back in the end of May, early June. And I was hoping that he was going to, and everyone listening, probably knows this deer. I talk about him every single episode, but he was around last year, dropped one side. So he was off the list. Then this year he comes back. He's much bigger. He's got to be 4.5, 5.5. I would say 4.5 probably. And I've basically got this deer trained where I know for a fact, because, in Georgia, we can bait, right? It's on a private spot. I know what the deer is going to do. I know that opening day, as long as I do the same thing I've been doing, because he didn't leave last year. I saw him the second week of season. So I know if I go opening day in that evening, he is going to be somewhere around there as long as the wind is good and I do camo dust right, which thankfully Chris, I think, is coming on hopefully before that to freshen it up. But that deer is going to be there. And
Yep.
To what you were saying is, as cool as that is, and I hope I kill him, going on public, there's something completely different where you don't know what's there. What I mean?
Well, it's the same thing like we've talked about before. Like I don't run trail cameras, and and if you don't like cuss words, I'm gonna cuss. But I don't run. And the reason being is because, and I tell everybody the same thing. If I was to spin this camera around, there are 140 in between 125 and 161 inch deer in here. And whenever I let that arrow go and I shoot that deer, or that 3.5-year-old 135 inch deer comes by, you can't convince me he wasn't the biggest son of a bitch in the woods. And that's the reason cameras, and guys, I catch a lot of grief from that sometimes, just like the Iowa hunt. This last year, I went to Iowa in the first sit, I killed a 148 inch deer. And like, you killed a 148 inch deer the first day, like if you'd had cameras out, you'd have been doing this, you'd have been doing that. And I'm like, man, so I spent countless hours, which I think the story is funny. And so it goes back to the scouting with your map. I dropped that pin, if I'm not mistaken, on August 7th, could have been July 7th, that I ended up killing the deer 50 yards from. But that story's hilarious to me because we got there. Eric got there the day before me, but I got there Saturday morning at daylight. I drove through the night. And we jumped in Eric's truck, and then the next day and a half, I walked like 19.5 miles or something crazy, right? Scouting, which is what I always do. Like, I try to tell guys, like, if you're going out of state, take 7 days or 9. Like, for me, it's always 9 because it's 2 weekends and 5 days in between, right? And so the first 2 days I'm there is all scouting. I don't care if I find the best sign I've ever seen in my life. It's all scouting. And then, I'm going, but it's not random scouting. I'm going to pins that I have dropped, over the year, knowing that I'm going to this area. Like, I'm walking to every pin that I have dropped, and I'm looking at the sign that I see. And then I basically label them like 1, 2, 3. Like, this is the number 1 spot, 2 spot, 3 spot. Well, when Eric and I went there, we walked 20 miles, 19 miles, something crazy like that in 2 days. And the last spot that we stopped was the first pin that I dropped. And it was the only spot that I would have hunted out of all my pins. And not because they weren't good spots. It was in Iowa, you get a bunch of gun hunters and they come in off of the private land. And so a lot of the stuff that I had pinned, I don't think that people were hunting there because I think they weren't going to come in until the gun season. But I don't like hunting areas where I see stuff from guys in the past and stuff like that. There's a bunch of lock-ons and those kind of things. I mean, we jumped like 150-inch deer, like so they were there. Yeah. To find out later, there was actually a over 200-inch deer in that block of timber. But you don't know that, right? And so without cameras, I shoot 148-inch deer, and I'm telling you right now, like I'm still excited about that deer. I watch that video all the time. And so, you know, would I've been excited with the 200? Absolutely. But I was just excited with the 140. But, you know, whenever you go, for me, it's always a learning experience. And I think that's why I enjoy the thrill of it. Because for me, it's not really a public versus private. I know that's always like a big battle. Yeah. It's just going and never have been there before. You know, just like whenever I went to Georgia last year and did the urban thing. It was the same thing. Like I didn't have any cameras. Yeah, we could put out feeds. You know, we could do this, we could do that. One of the other guys, the guy that we were hunting with, like he had cameras. The deer that I killed, he'd never had on camera. You know, but it's just the thrill of I've got 7 days to get this done. I'm in a complete new area. I don't know anything about this area, and I've got to scout it, figure it out, and get it done in those 7 days. And that's the horns are great. Don't get me wrong. The content is amazing, but it's the learning thing. Like before the YouTube channel, before the podcast, before all that, like I was just going out and enjoying the chase. Like, and I'm not one of those guys like it's all about the chase because hell no. Like I like to hold them horns. You know, the man room in my underwear at night with a glass of water and be like, I did that. You know what I mean? but it is. I like to learn. Like, and I'm very competitive against the deer, not against other hunters. Like you know, even the Iowa deer, I killed him, and then 2 days later, I jumped over to Missouri and I killed that one off the ground. There's some dudes from Florida that were up there, and I was like, "Hey, bro, go to this tree," because muzzleloading was coming in the next day, and they were there to muzzleload. And they were like, "Oh no!" And I'm like, "I'm telling you, go to this tree." And that dude sent me probably one of the most epic boat pictures I've ever seen in my life. And it was a picture of every buck that I had seen dead. They went in and straight smashed that one. They killed 4 bucks. Yeah, just straight smashed. It was awesome. But the difference is like they were using muzzleloaders where I was restricted to a bow, so I couldn't make that 100-yard shot, but I was seeing them. And so, you know, that's what I mean by not competitive against other hunters. Like, dude, I'll put you on them. Like, I think it's cool to see somebody else's excitement just as much as my own, you know?
Yeah, well, and the thing is, too, man, like, it's public land. You know, a lot of these guys that go there, and thankfully I haven't had this happen yet. It could happen this year. I don't know. But there's a lot of people that go there and they're like, "Oh, I've hunted," and I heard this on a podcast the other day. It made me think of it, but it's like, "Oh, I've hunted this spot for 20 years." You know, that guy's probably been there like 5 times, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, I pay my taxes just like you do. I have every right to be here like you do. You know what I mean?
I have had that happen to me, actually. Cliffy's Playhouse, which I talk about all the time. It was the public land that I started hunting on. I think I killed 4 Pope and Youngs off of that ridge. The second time I went in there, I killed my first public land Pope and Young. He was a 134. He's right there. I killed him on a Sunday, and then Tuesday I went back in there. It was like 1:30 in the morning or in the evening. And I get there and there's like this 65-year-old man. This spot is not easy to get to. And there's like this 65-year-old man in like just civilian clothes standing next to my tree. And I walk up and he was like, and it was a bad experience at first because he was like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Hunting." And anyways, he's like, "Where are you hunting at?" And I was like, "That's my climber," you know, kind of thing. And he was like, "Well, how long you been hunting here?" And I was like, "This is my first year in here. You know, I just found the spot, killed this deer." And I told him about it because that's who I am. I'm like, "Yeah, I killed 134-inch deer over here." And he kind of like, and I was like, "What?" He was like, "I've been hunting here since, you know, you were shitting green in your diaper," kind of thing. And he was like, "I would shoot a deer up here if he ain't 160. And I was like, "Good, leaves more for me." And I didn't know how it was going to go. And the man just started laughing. And he was like, "I mean, you're not wrong, you know, blah, blah." Anyways, we talked for like 10 minutes, shook his hand. And I was like, "Man, it was a privilege to meet you." He walks out, and literally 42 minutes to the minute later, I killed 127-inch deer in the same tree.
That's insane.
Yeah. So,
dude,
cool.
That gets me so excited about public, though, because, like, I think maybe next year. I mean, I'll be honest, dude. Like, I don't have to run cameras on where I'm at. On the public land, on the private land, it's a little different because I've got history with those deer. You know, I want to keep tabs on them and all that stuff. But I mean, I might try that next year. What you do, because I already know what could be over there. I mean, hell, I saw a 160 3 years ago.
If you do that, stop going to the same spot you've been to. Like, go to another side of the public. Like, go somewhere else. Wait. Like, and this is something that I did because I used to run, 20 cell cameras too.
Mhm.
And when I started, I would say, because I've killed 16 public land Pope and Youngs, or 16 Pope and Youngs in 5 different states, 13 of which were public land.
Oh, so you're at 16 now.
Yeah. And whenever you had said in the book, they're not, I killed 2 this last year. I killed the Iowa deer and then I killed the one in Texas.
Yeah.
But whenever we say in the book, I only have 1 in the book. The rest of them have all been professionally scored. But in case you guys don't know, like, the book sounds real cool, but you have to pay to put them in there.
Yeah.
You have to pay to get them professionally scored, and you have to pay to get them put in the book. So, like,
wait. Hold on. You have to pay to get them put in the book?
Yeah.
What?
Yep. Yeah. It's not free 99. I have. Hang on. Wait.
Okay.
So I did my first one because of this. It's a Big Buck Classic 2016.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yep, it was the biggest deer that had been killed in our county in like 13 years. So, like, obviously I did that one. Got my little plaque, stays over there. But after that one, I was like, oh, I get it. Because I've heard, like my buddy Richard, the same way, like, he has one in there, and then he was like, oh, it's dumb. And I was like, whatever, like, I'm shooting every 125-inch deer comes by me, and I'm putting them all in the book. And then after one, I was like, oh, I get it. It's going to cost me $150. The mount's $450. Like, now it's $600. Like, I'm not doing that. So,
I did not know that.
I got to tell everybody else, though, it's like, you're more welcome to come put a tape on them yourself.
Yeah. I didn't know you had to pay for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because, like, obviously they need to get their money somewhere, right? But, man, I might do what y'all do. Just get one and be done, if I even get on one this year. But so that's like, all right. So I kind of want to transition a little bit. Like, we were talking about public. Obviously, it seems like that's mainly what you hunt is public, right?
Yep. That's 99.9%. Yeah.
Okay. So before I get into the Georgia stuff, me and my buddy Thor and a couple other buddies of mine, we're planning on going to Illinois next year and hunting public land.
Mm-hmm.
You've hunted Illinois before, right?
Nope.
Oh, damn it. I was going to – dang it. All right. Well, okay. Iowa's pretty similar to Illinois, isn't it?
Iowa, Arkansas, Missouri, all those are pretty similar, yeah.
Okay. So what should we be looking for, I guess, different from Georgia? Because one thing, I do need to call you out. You were in Georgia, hunting suburbs.
Yeah.
I'm only an hour from Atlanta. Where was the text? Where's the, hey, man, I'm in town. What you doing?
I was an hour. So you know what, though? You need to kick JD because JD knew I was there. I was like an hour north of Atlanta.
Oh, so you were like Seek One territory. Like what city were you in?
Remember the name of it?
Was it Alpharetta? Alpharetta?
No, because it wasn't like we were urban hunting, but it wasn't like urban.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Like it was urban, but it wasn't urban. Like every place. Like, so he had one place. Yes, some of it was Seek One territory because one of the pieces of property that the buddy had actually butted up to a piece of property that Lee has permission on.
Really?
Yeah, and it was funny because this dude had 3 deer that were over 150 on camera there.
I believe it.
I won't say the name of the lady or whatever, but when I got invited by my friend, I thought that I was going to hunt that property. So I was like super thrilled. And then I got there and it was like, no, you can go, 45 minutes down the road over there. So it was different. I mean, it was fun. It was a blast. I like going to new places, but yeah, it was. it's pretty close anyways.
Okay, so I know I said I wanted to talk about public, but there's one thing I do want to say before we hop into that. Before I get you, kind of picking your brain on that. I want to get you out here 1 year. Doesn't have to be this year, next year, whatever. 1 year, I want to get you out here to come hunt the public that I hunt, and I'm curious what you can find, because I'd like to see how you do it, considering since I hunt it every year, and I know I could learn something. But I also know there's giant deer on this WMA. Like, I've seen 2 already that definitely are over 150, and that's just 2 out of thousands of acres, right?
Yep.
So I'm not saying this year, next year, but we need to make that happen where you come out if you wanted to, and I can send you. I mean, I've sent you my pins before, so you've already seen that property. You pointed out a spot that I'm probably going to go hit this November. And I mean, I just think it'd be really cool. It'd be really cool to see what you could pull off out there. So just wanted to drop that. But moving over to the Illinois thing. So we're planning on going to Illinois public land. What should we be looking for? Obviously the fat lines, but Illinois is flat. So
pinch points. Whenever you go to a place like that, a lot of time, and props to Eric, he nicknamed them this. We call them ditch bank deer. And so what you'll end up with is a bunch of small tracts of land that kind of peter out, and it'll be like a ditch bank. The reason there's still timber there is because they can't farm it. And those deer they'll travel those. And so I do the same thing. Like if it's flat land, I do the exact same thing that I do with topo maps, except with trees. I will zoom all the way out to where you can barely see everything. And then I will look for those little tracts of land where they would connect, right? The smallest connection. So like the best example when you go into Illinois is Kansas. That's what I did, or what I'm doing for Kansas this year, because I'm going back to Kansas this year. This year I'm doing a little bit different. I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone too, because I'm a big timber guy. I'm going to go hunt this small tract that I found, a couple different little small tracts, but it's the same thing. Like I think that, whenever I look at these properties, there's no topo to them at all, but there's blocks of trees. And the thing is like being from here in Arkansas, what you'll realize, especially in the east side of the state, you'll have like a big block, another big block, and it'd just be like a fence roll or like, a drainage ditch, bar ditch, what we call them, runs in between the two. And it's just got like, thicket down it. Those big giant bucks will bed in that little thicket. And then whenever they get up, they're either going left or right. They're going to one of those big blocks of timber. So a lot of times you can get on those points. It's a pinch point. So, like I said, if your mind works like mine and you think about topo maps, and I talk about like the fingers that come down, like the gradual fingers, those woods are doing the same thing. It's just there's no topo difference. It's still the quickest way in between 2 points that they feel the most comfortable.
Okay. So I guess to simplify it for people who, maybe aren't going to put in the effort, which I think they should, because like especially the past couple of weeks after going and pulling those cards and seeing what's been happening, the simplest way to put it is you just look for the easiest route of travel for them, and that's kind of okay.
Like if you're just trying to see deer, like you're trying to get in there, like, and a lot of the stuff I'm telling you is like, that's your, not the Illinois stuff. Like that's your big deer stuff. But like whenever you're, focusing on saddles and stuff like that, like that's the first piece to that puzzle. And that's your 3.5-year-old bucks. Like, to get a couple underneath your belt to figure out, okay, how come I'm not seeing the 5.5? How come I'm not seeing the 6.5? And then, that comes to like the way the particles move through the air and hunting that next ridge over so that you can get on that fallout stuff, and that's a whole episode in itself. But that's all of that is part of it. But in generally speaking, if you're going somewhere and you've never been there, use the topo features and use the landmass to your advantage. And like I think I said this the last time, is like, especially like if your mapping shows like a summertime photo, you zoom out, and the first thing that I will look for if I'm going to big timber a lot of times is like multicolors, right? Because like it's like a buffet, right? You know what I mean? You start zooming in, you realize there's like a little red oak ridge right there. There's probably some white oaks in there, some pin oaks in there. And so it gives them multiple varieties of stuff that they can eat. So if you've never been there before in your life, you don't know anything about topo maps, but you can see colors and you're not colorblind, you can probably go there and see deer at any point in time of the year if there are those multicolor variations in the trees, because there are multiple different trees growing there. So it's not like, my property here at the house, I got 22 acres here. It is awesome until November. And it's not because the does aren't here, but it's because my property's full of white oaks. So they're all done dropping by November. The property next door to me is all red oak, and they all just move from here and they go right next door. And so, but if you looked at my place on a aerial photo, their property and my property is two different colors.
Yeah.
Like in by the treetops. And so if I was going somewhere, never been anywhere, didn't know anything about, pinch points or saddles or topo lines, just the colors of the trees would tell me a lot about this area if it was public, because I would come over here and I would start on this side. I'm not seeing anything. I'd walk 300 yards that way, and then there's all the deer sign,
So to that point, are you using, I'm assuming you still use Onyx, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
When you're doing that, because we had Jared Larson on the podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I don't know if you know Jared, but he's the whitetail turkey guy, marketing guy.
Yeah, the long-haired guy.
Yes.
Yes, I didn't know him, but I spoke at an Onyx event here like a month ago.
Gotcha.
2 months, something like that. And I met. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So you know who I'm talking about. Well,
Yep.
When we were talking with him and going over I guess the reasons why people should use Onyx and all that, because he convinced me, dude. I was using Onyx, Spartan Forge, Huntwise, like all of that stuff. And after that episode, I'm like, bro, I'm deleting everything. And I did. Reason being is because they have so many different things that you can use. And one of the things that I had already I turned that setting on, but I didn't really pay attention till just very recently, is they actually let you see what type of crop is going to be in one specific area. But have you noticed, have you used that and seen that it's accurate?
I have, and I'm sure he told y'all this. It's been a little glitchy, but it's all getting worked out. It'll all be fixed by the time hunt season. So I haven't used that as much as I did like the acorn crop filter and stuff like that.
That's what I was talking about, is the acorns.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's also Onyx is coming out with a crop feature too.
Oh yeah, I haven't put that on.
It shows you the rotation of crops that farmers use off of historical data. So, and that is going to be huge from dudes from the South that go out to the Midwest and hunt, because hear me now, if you're going out to the Midwest and there is still corn in the fields, get back in your truck and go back home and go back to work and come back after they cut the corn. So,
okay. Why is that though?
The deer don't come out of the corn. They stay in the corn. They live, breathe, and eat in that damn cornfield, and they're not coming out.
Yep.
The only, knock on wood, the only trips that I have really had my rear end handed to me is whenever I have went up north and they still had corn in the cornfields. And it just gets real difficult. I mean, you can smash doe. I mean, I smashed a couple does, but you're not gonna get that big deer. Like, he knows what's safe and he stays in them cornfields. But that's another feature that Onyx is fixing to come out with. If it's not already on there, I think it's already on there now. But that's going to be huge for your traveling stuff, because all of that stuff just puts things in your arsenal, that you can use to help. As far as the acorn stuff, I haven't used that a lot. I have buddies that do. They swear by it, says it's pretty accurate. The only reason that I haven't is I don't typically hunt feed trees. So like I will, if I'm going off of a map, terrain features, like that's just the way, pinch points, stuff like that. That's the way that I like to hunt. Not that there's anything wrong with the feed trees. I mean, Richard Flodd is a testimony to feed trees, and which is why him and I cut up so much, is that we hunt two different ways and both successful. Like the only way I'm hunting over a feed tree if it happens to be next to a fat line. Like,
well, and dude, I was just about to bring that up too. Is when you said that, I thought back to Richard, and I was talking to Richard a couple weeks ago about early season and him getting out. He's like, man, I might go out there and kill me in 170, and I'm like, go, man. Like last time I talked to you, said you hardly even hunt now. So if you're talking about hunting, go do it. I want to see some more big deer from you. But what's crazy to me is you both have been able to kill so many Pope and Youngs on public land, but doing it two completely different ways, and it just goes to show there's more than one way to skin a cat,
There is, and always I contribute, and Richard talks about this too, and I know he'll listen to it, and so and he can vouch this. So Richard, and he'll tell you he's very successful in December. Like most of Richard's bucks come out in December. Most of my deer, if you'll pay attention to whenever I'm traveling, and I know that you said that you were going to ask where I'm going to travel this year, so we'll get to that later. But if you'll notice, I always try to travel to those states in pre-rut, rut, or post-rut, because the style that I hunt is for that cruising deer. It's not for necessarily, the feeding areas and those kind of things. And so I think that, like you said, there's so many different ways to hunt these bucks and be successful if you know what the hell you're doing. So number one is like I always say in my videos, is confidence is accuracy, and accuracy kills. So whether that's the bow that you choose to shoot, the broadhead you choose to shoot, or the style that you choose to hunt, right? So Richard is extremely confident in his feed tree killing abilities. I'm extremely confident in my cruising corridor killing abilities. And Richard and I have, I'm not going to say ever put that to the test, but the place where I was talking about Cliffy's Playhouse is, Richard's been hunting for like 30 years and has never killed a buck on it. However, the place that Richard hunts, that's River Bottoms, that he has killed the hell out of some big deer on, I have killed one little dink ass 7-point. Like, you know what I mean? And I think it's contributed to our styles of hunting where he hunts. There's not as many feed trees. And whenever you do find them, you spend the time on them, you can be extremely successful. My style of hunting there don't work very well because it's wide open timber. Like there's no features, there's no pinches. It's just wide open bottoms. You can see 100 yards from the ground kind of stuff. And I'm not successful with stuff like that. And that dude just straight goes ham. You know what I mean? So it's knowing how to use what you're confident in, basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've tried to figure out a way to sort of mesh the two ways that you guys do it together, because a lot of like I said, I always look for the fat line. I didn't really go into as much detail as you do, but I'm going to start. But I also look for feed trees too, because, Georgia, like the public land I've got, they have 2 archery seasons. They've got one that's opening day to, I think, the end of September, and our acorns don't start falling until I'd have to say October. So all of that is kind of out, right? So I'm having to use the like you were saying, the travel corridors and stuff. But then in November, I think the second weekend in November, it's all rut stuff. I don't even worry about like feed or anything like that because I've hunt over a mock scrape, and I've told you before, I called in that huge 10-point like 3 years ago, just doing what Richard does. So like I feel like people can take what he says and what you say, put them together and figure it out themselves,
If a person, and I feel like doing that is extremely difficult. And the reason that I say that is that I consider myself not a great hunter. I consider myself successful, right? And I base success off of consistency, not the dude that every 5 years kills a 200, even a 200-inch deer. Like I don't know how successful that is, in my opinion. But if you're consistently killing mature deer, I don't give a shit about how big their horns are, then I consider that successful. I have tried back because, you got to remember when I met Richard, I was not a public land guy, right? I had never stepped foot on public land in my life. And Richard was like, to kill big deer, you got to go where big deer are. So I started on public land, and I still he's one of my best friends. So I know what he does, and I wasn't successful at it. You know what I mean? But then I transitioned into what I thought deer would do and started smashing. But in all honesty, I started smashing the end of November, which is the rut, pre-rut here. And so, the next year rolled around, and early season, actually, no, that wasn't the year. Yeah, that year I ended up being gone. I was traveling with military stuff. So it ends up being November before I'm back in town again, and go out last 2 weeks in November, tag out, and then I put that method to my madness. And it was like, I'm not even messing with these dudes until the end of November, first 2 weeks of December. And, that's kind of what I've stuck to the last 8 years. So,
it seems to have kind of worked out at least a little bit.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is I think that dudes spend a lot of time a lot of time, wasted time. And so I feel like with my job, it pushed me to try to put more knowledge into when I was going to hunt and where I was going to hunt and how I was going to do it. Because like we talked about before, like I don't care about wind. I don't give a shit which way my wind's blowing. If I care at all about wind, it's because I'm trying to give that buck the wind. And so because I'm a scent freak, but there's things to be said about that too. It's like, I didn't have every day to go hunt, and I still don't. Like I'm still full-time in the military, and I'm coaching a travel ball team, and I have a wife, and I have a life. Like, you know what I mean? So it's still not, I get to go all these, people see the high points, as we always say, like they see the YouTube videos. It's like, this dude's everywhere. Well, if you break it down, really, I was gone for 2 weeks, but I hit 4 states and I killed 6 bucks. Like, you know what I mean? Because I take advantage of the time that I do have. You know what I mean? When we go on our hunting trips, bro, like you're not drinking beer, you're not going out to eat dinner, you're not hanging out after dark. Like you are there. Eric and I roll in somewhere, like we're there to kill shit. Like, and that's what we're here to do, as time is money and everything's expensive.
Yeah, dude, you ain't kidding. Like I was telling you earlier, these deer are eating me out of house and home, man. It's ridiculous. Like I've had I've got that one spot where Trike's at, where if I put a feed block out, it's gone in 2 days. I've switched over now to corn, which, I mean, look, I know people have opinions on baiting. If I'm not doing it, the neighbor's doing it, and then I'm not seeing deer. So I have to do it, right? So
if it's legal, let it eat.
Exactly. So the problem is, you were saying, things are expensive. Yeah, well, these deer are expensive. If you look at how much I've spent in the past, 5-6 years now, dude, it's in the thousands of thousands, right? So
2 years ago, I did urban hunting in Arkansas the first time.
Yeah.
I went through 4,000 pounds of corn, and I killed 11 deer off of it, but I went through 4,000 pounds of corn, and I probably hunted it 12 or 13 times because I was killing a deer every time I went. Like, that's why I had, like, I was doing the hunter's feed and the hungry kind of thing. And so, and then I did it last year, and I killed 2 the opening day, and then never went back. And that shoot to qualify this weekend. I actually told my wife today, I was like, I'm going to go pull all my stands. And she was like, what? And I was like, I don't have the time to go do it. Like, my kid, he's 8 now, he killed his first deer 2 years ago. Then he killed 2 bucks last year. And it's like, man, like I'm not going to have time to go do that urban thing. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to focus more on, my stuff. And then obviously those 2 giant deer. So, my thing to that is like I said, 99% of my hunting is public, but like, I'm not ashamed to get over a feed pile. Like, hell, the place that Eric and I guess not last year before last year, bro, I did not kill a buck in Arkansas. Not one. Well, I take that back. I killed a 4-point velvet deer like September 1st.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because didn't you do that with that 50-pound bear?
Yeah, 42 pound, I think.
42.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 5 yards or something. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Like, we talked about that in your episode. I'm like, how in the world everyone out here, like Bomar, which I respect Bomar a lot, but it's like 90 pounds? You don't need that. Not for a deer, maybe a Cape Buffalo or a T-Rex, but definitely not.
Yep.
Not a whitetail.
Arms are this big around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Josh is.
My actual bow, like I pull 73 is what is on my actual bow, but I did that one just for the purpose, like we're talking now, like of doing it. But year before last, hell with on that little private piece Eric and I have, the first buck I killed that year, which was a Pope and Young as well, but he had a sweet potato hanging out of his mouth when I shot him, and then the second one, the big hunt where Eric and I doubled up, there was his ended up being, so I guess there was like 270 inches in between those 2 deer laying dead within 50 yards of each other. We killed them like 10 minutes apart, but those 2 deer, the guys that don't know, didn't follow along the whole season, they thought we were just hunting over feed, and we were. But, and this is a thing for you guys that hunt private. Hear me. So if you're feeding them regular corn or you're feeding them blocks like you were or whatever, when those deer are on feed, mix it up. So like Eric and I saved this one spot on the property and we never went in there. And then the end of season, we knew they were back on feed. It was like that, I would say kind of the second rut too. Some of the young does were coming in, which you see in the video. I shot mine behind a doe. Eric shot his coming in to feed. But what we did is we had been baiting with sweet potatoes and regular corn throughout the year all over this property. And then when we went in that day, we carried in 2 bags of apple corn, and we were like probably 600 yards from where we had our stands hung and hunted there all the time kind of thing. So even though it wasn't public, I did the exact same thing I would have done with public, except the wind was blowing into the bedding area. So I took that apple corn and dumped it out. And we seen like 40 deer. It was stupid. We seen like every deer we've ever had on camera, but it was because it was a new smell. And it was funny because if you watch the video, I left it in there, but like the first 2 deer blew. As soon as they hit that new smell, they and then we had a couple of young does that came in, was down there munching, and all the rest of the deer are like, wait, they're not dead. It's okay. Not realizing that if you had headgear, you weren't leaving. So,
yeah, I mean, I've noticed that too, man. Like, because I do protein most of the year, and then especially the prices is really what drove me to switch back to corn. But throughout season, like the first half of season before the rut, I'll do mostly corn. I might throw a little bit of peanut powder in there or a bag of buck bourbon or something, but most of the time that's what I do. And then once it gets past the rut and these deer have been just going and going and going, I'll go back to protein, and it's a new smell, and it works. I mean, like I did that last year on my last sit of the season, killed a doe within 20 minutes of being in the stand because I had put feed out. I hadn't been feeding there at all. And it was in January. She showed up and I was like, okay, we need the meat. And that was it. So even though it wasn't a buck, it still works. So,
and that's kind of the thing that I learned on that urban place, which is the only reason that my heart of hearts is hurt because I'm not going to hunt it this year. And I didn't have time to hunt it last year is because the year before that, and I've got pictures of these deer, but throughout the season, the biggest deer I had on camera was probably mid 120s. And then rolled around to December, the end of December, I told myself I'm going to hunt it like public. Right. And so I went down on a Thursday afternoon and I was supposed to take off on Friday. I go down, find this saddle, like set my stuff up, and I dumped out a bag of feed. And I was like, I'm going to come back in the morning and I'm going to smash big deer, like, just talking crap. And then I ended up not burning that day of leave because we were going to go to Mississippi the next week. So I wanted to save it for the next week. And I had a mid 150s deer show up 30 minutes after daylight on it. Biggest deer I'd ever seen on the place. And so then I was like, ooh, method to the madness. So then I didn't have time to hunt, but I went and made 4 different feed piles not in that area because it's a big urban area, but within miles of each other though. And the following, either like if I put it out at 10 or 11 o'clock that morning, right before dark, there was a mature deer on it. If I put it in that afternoon, the next morning there was a mature deer on it, and they showed up one time and never came back. So.
That's heartbreaking.
Yep.
Man, well, look, so all right, before we wrap this up, man, we've been at it for almost a little bit over an hour now. I do want to talk about where you're going to be going this year, and I know you always go to different states. I'll watch your videos throughout the season. I'll go back to them when it's off season because I'm bored and depressed, and your stuff helps me get through it. Where are we going to see you this year, man?
So September. Obviously, I'm going to stay in Arkansas now because of that one deer. And we only get 3 days in September to hunt, but I'm going to hunt here in September, and then we've got baseball. So October, I'm going to Ohio. Never been to Ohio. We're going in early October. So if I kill one there, I'd be surprised because I don't do good that time of year, but we'll see how it goes. But going to October, and then November, first 2 weeks of November, I'll be in Kansas. I plan, knock on wood, I plan to kill pretty early in Kansas, and then because now I kind of know how deer act there. If the weather does what it should, then I should kill there, and then I'll jump over to Missouri. So hopefully in November I'll hit Missouri and Kansas, or Kansas and then Missouri, and then the week of Thanksgiving. Now is mine and my kids' time to go somewhere. So we'll either be back down in Texas or maybe Oklahoma. I don't know which one yet. And then December, I have thought about going to Illinois, maybe back to Ohio if I didn't tag out then. So that one's going to kind of be up in the air for December, and then in January I'm going back to Mississippi. So like the for sure, no doubts, Ohio, Kansas, and Mississippi are the three that like I've already got Airbnbs booked. So
nice. Well, if you go to Illinois, let me know how it is because I'm gonna need a little hint of what to expect.
Illinois, Ohio, and Indiana are three states that I have, to me are just like Iowa or Kansas, like places that I've always wanted to hunt. Mm-hmm. And I just, I haven't had working full time really puts a damper on your hunting stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like being with my job, I get 30 days of leave a year, and I usually got to dedicate at least one of those to the family. And so, I get roughly 20 days. And so with me, that means 4 weeks, which is a blessing. You stay in long enough, you get some extra time. But I get 20 days where I got to kind of bounce those around. And, usually that ends up being 4 trips. But this year with what I have in Arkansas, I don't know how much I'm going to be leaving. Even the Ohio thing, like that Ohio thing is a collaboration with XOP, and they are well aware that if it is right here, I won't be there.
I don't blame you. From what you told me, I don't blame you. I'm looking forward to it, man. Really, God, I wish I could talk about it more, but I can't.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well, why don't you give us a shameless plug before we wrap it up? Tell us where we can find you. I mean, obviously I know, but the people that are listening and watching all that stuff. Oh, my wife just texted me.
Oh, you in trouble
now? No, it's a. Oh boy, I'll tell you here in a second. Yeah. So go ahead and just give us a shameless plug if you don't mind, and let them know where they can find you.
Yep. On Your Own Outdoors. I do product reviews, and obviously I hunt and kill what I consider big deer. We usually average about 20 hunts a year in between me and my 2 buddies that have started hunting with me there. And so YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the above. You can usually find short videos of not the hunts because TikTok can demonetize you, but short videos of the product reviews if you're just kind of wanting a glimpse of it. But I promise you, I do love to hunt, but I love to teach. So if you're looking at a product, I do no bullshit real world reviews, and I don't accept money for my reviews because I want to be able to say what I want to say. So before you go buy something, go check out the channel, see if it's on there. If it's not on there, shoot me an email and it'll be on there the next time you look.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thank you, man, for coming on. The next one we do definitely is going to be longer because I still have a ton of questions I want to ask you, but family calls. And tomorrow at the time of this recording is my daughter's birthday, so I'm pretty sure it's something related to that. So yeah. But yeah, man, thank you for real for coming on. And I'm sorry about having to reschedule it and stuff yesterday. Things have been crazy around here.
Anytime.
So, awesome, buddy. Well, till next time, man.
Yes, sir. Have a good one, buddy.
You too.